We give glory to Almighty Allah. We thank Him. We glorify His name. We seek Allah's blessings upon the noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household, and his companion. We ask Almighty Allah to forgive all of our shortcomings and to accept all of our dua. Ameen. Brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, I say, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon each and every one of us. I congratulate us for having the glory of Allah to be on this platform today to participate in this in the Azkar, and also to listen to the words of Allah. It is indeed um, a privilege to be alive in the first instance, and then to be granted the mercy of Allah to participate in this event rather than doing other things or being busy with other things outside of this. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So to begin, I will first congratulate us and say welcome everyone to the new month of the new year of the Islamic calendar, Muharram. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us His mercy to witness many more new calendar years of the Islamic calendar by His mercy. May this year, this Islamic calendar year, be fruitful for each and every one of us. May our prayers be answered. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide us and increase us in faith as we go into this new year of the Muslim calendar. Amen. Today, inshallah, I will be reminding us of things that we already know. And indeed, this is a reminder, this is an opportunity to remind ourselves, and to prepare ourselves and to strengthen ourselves by repeating things that we already know and bringing it to ourselves over and over again. May Allah make it beneficial to every one of us. Ameen. I want to talk about the two things that are most certain in the life of every person. The two things that are most certain in the life of every person, and how we deal with these two things, these two events, and how we can be prepared for these two events. Actually, today we're going to talk about two different topics. So the first one is going to remind us about two things that are essential and constant in the life of every person, that we need to prepare for, we need to be ready for, and we need to be prepared as to how we react when those two things happen to us or to anyone around us. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is Islamic finance, especially as it relates to the family unit. Remember, we were talking about Islam as a communal religion, and that we were going to focus on the community as relates to Islam. And we said the community is the building block of any society, but the building block of any community is the family. And the family comprises of the man, the woman, and the children if they are available. But it's basically the family consists of the man and the woman. And then the family is the building block of the community, and the community is the building block of any society. So we will be focusing on the family finances as relates to Islam, inshallah. Now, those two things that are constant and should be expected by everyone. The first of those two is the trials and tribulations from Allah. And the second of those two is death. People are usually, more cognizant of death being a certain event in the life of every person. But we tend to forget that trials and tribulations are also certain events in the life of every person, because these two things Allah has established and has promised that they will happen. We just have to be aware and be ready for them when they happen. And we have to be ready. We have to have constant reminders, like we are doing today, to remind ourselves of this two and how they will, they will or might occur, and what our reactions should be, and how we can be best prepared for the events when they do occur. So, how do we know that trials and tribulations are certain events in our lives that we should be prepared for? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in various verses in the Holy Quran, one of which is, and again, we've heard this before multiple times, and this is a reminder, where Allah has said, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. That we will test أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ. Do the people think that they will be left alone and they will not be tested? Do the people think أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ? And this verse specifies to us that this test will occur to the people that claim belief, the people that claim that they believe in Allah, they have belief in Allah. Allah will test our beliefs, and every Muslim claims a certain level of belief in Allah. So every Muslim should be cognizant of the fact that this claim of belief will be tested. Allah said, "You will not be left alone to make this claim that you have belief in Allah without being tested." We declare our belief in Allah in many different forms, and in fact, as Muslims, we most likely do it every day. Every single Muslim declare their faith and belief in Allah every single day. Every time we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, for example, and we say, "Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in," we're making a declaration and saying that it is you, Allah, it is only you, Iyyaka, it is only you, na'budu, that we worship. That's a declaration to Allah. Wa iyyaka nasta'in, and it is only from you that we seek help. It is only from you that we seek assistance. So when something happens and the first thing that comes to your mind to seek help or assistance is not from Allah, then you're failed. Then it means that when you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, you probably don't know what you're talking about, or you're just being dishonest to your Creator that knows everything about you. So when we recite Surah Al-Fatiha, you're making a decree, you're making a declaration, and you will be held to it by Allah. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسَ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people really think that we will leave them to just proclaim faith in Allah, to proclaim that they have belief in Allah, وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ, and that they will not be tested, they will not be tried, that they will not be afflicted? وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ. And indeed, we have tested those before them. Allah has tested those who have proclaimed faith before us. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is one of those such people who had proclaimed faith before us. He was one of the ones who discovered Allah in the most spectacular manner, and he declared his faith. It was tested when his people came together against him, and they had decided to burn him alive. His faith was tested at that point. He did not renege. He faced the fire, and he did not seek help from anywhere else. He sought help from the Lord of the worlds, the one that he had discovered, that he had proclaimed to himself that it is the one that is bringing the sun at the time for the sun to come out, is the one that takes the sun back at the time to take the sun away, and shows the moon when it's time to show the moon, and shows the stars at the right time. It is that Lord that I will worship. It is that Lord that I worship, that I recognize. And at the point of trial, in the face of fire, he stood by his proclamation. In the face of tribulation, even when the fire was burning really hot, when he could have just reneged, when he could have made an about face and say that he did not mean it, or he could just have changed everything and said that, I don't believe in that God again. I follow you people. I follow your gods. He did not renege on his belief, and he did not seek help from anything else. That's the most important thing. He focused on seeking help from Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped him out. And Allah helped him out And Allah narrated this to us as a sign, and also to show us that if you stand steadfast with Allah, Allah will always be by your side to help you. And you would also have passed Allah's test. And He also showed us through Ibrahim alayhi salam, the reward of those who passed their trials, those who are tried and passed the trials of Allah. Because afterwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. And the reward for Ibrahim, after he was tested, was that Allah made him a leader of men, made him a leader of men. And today, Ibrahim alayhi salam, his name is, recalled all over the world, even years, centuries after his death. His name is never going to be forgotten. And Allah has made him the father of religion. Above other prophets, Allah has raised him in station above all men, based on the fact that he stood steadfast in the face of trial. And it wasn't the only one. We have other examples of those before us that Allah attested, where Allah said, وَلَقَدْ فَتَّنَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. And we have tested those before you people that are proclaiming faith today. And we can learn from them. And one of them is just Ibrahim that we've mentioned. Another one is Prophet Ayub alayhi salam, when he was afflicted with pain. وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. And when Ayuba was afflicted with disease and pain, and he called out to Allah against all odds, when he could have, simply just sought help from elsewhere, or from other people, or from other things, it did not for 1 second forget about Allah. I did not for 1 second forget about Allah. And the story of Ayub is in itself spectacular and worth examining, because he was afflicted for such a long time that he had multiple opportunities to do other things. And Shaitan, in fact, Shaitan was responsible for his affliction. And it was narrated also that Shaitan actually sought permission from Allah to afflict Ayub. And the only one thing that he didn't have power over was his soul, was to take his soul or to cause him to die. But he was going to do everything to make him lose his faith, to shake his faith and test his faith, and make sure that, because the only thing that Shaitan is concerned about is to make us to misstep, to take us away from the path we're on, and make us turn against Allah. That's the only thing he is interested in. And he wants to add more people to his own troops. He doesn't want to be alone because he's already condemned. He wants to add more people on his side of those who are condemned. So that's all he cares about. He saw Ayub as a servant of Allah, one who had belief, the same way that Shaitan today would look at everyone who claims to have belief in Allah, everyone who worships Allah, everyone who does right things. Shaitan will look at you and he will be interested in you because you are one of those that he needs on his side. He wants to turn as many people from the light into the darkness with him. He doesn't want to be there alone. So you're a target. As long as you're a Muslim, you believe in Allah, you proclaim faith, you're a target to Shaitan. The same way Ayub was a target of Shaitan. And he did everything. He afflicted him with so much pain and such illness that he lost his voice. He could not speak. He could not move. He was stationary, disabled. At some point, it is narrated from his story that the only thing he had power over as a person was his mind. He had nothing else. He could not speak. He couldn't do anything. Basically, he had to be helped to do everything. The only thing he still had control over was his own mind. And even at that, he never stopped worshiping Allah. He never stopped doing azkar and making remembrance of Allah with his mind. And that in itself, with that, he beat the Shaitan. He passed the test. And finally, he made the call to Allah, which was recorded in the Quran, where he had said, إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. He made the call to Allah because there's no one else really to ask for help except Allah. And he remembered that, and he called to Allah and asked for Allah's help, and Allah helped him. And Allah, made everything whole for him. Allah healed him, and Allah brought back everything that he had lost during all the times of his trial. And this is another lesson to learn, because sometimes we think that whatever we have when we're going through trials are irreplaceable. But in the sight of Allah, everything can be replaced for us. Everything, even when we attach our happiness to other people or to things in this life, and because Allah is the one that has created the life we live on earth. Allah is the one that has said to us that He has made everything a zina. He has made everything an attraction for us in this life. The family we have, they are attractions and distractions for us. The wealth that we have, attractions and distractions. The children we have, attractions and distractions. The friends we have, the jobs you have, the houses you've built, everything you have that you've attached your happiness to, they're just attractions, and they're also distractions for you. And sometimes we think that when we lose these things, then everything is lost. But in the story of Ayub, alayhi salam, Allah has made us to know that things can be made whole for us when we lose, even if you lose them, as long as you do not lose your faith. And faith is the most important thing, because your faith is what is being tested. Every time you're passing through a phase, especially that which is from a trial from Allah, it is your faith that is being tested. You can lose everything else. You can lose your wealth and let it go. You can lose a child and let it go. You can lose a life and let it go. But if you lose your faith, then you've lost everything. If you have your faith, everything that you lose, everything else that you might have lost, that you might think you have lost, Allah can actually replace with something better, or bring everything back right at you, the way He did with Ayub. إذ نادى ربه أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين فاستجبنا له وكشفنا ما به من ضر. We healed him, and we made him whole. وآتيناه آله ومثله معهم رحمة من عندنا. We brought back his family and all of his belongings to him. ومثلهم, and everything else that he had lost. رحمة من عندنا, as a mercy from us, Allah. And the same way Allah did that for Ayub, Allah could do that for anyone else of His creation. رحمة من عندنا وذكرى للعابدين. And also as a reminder, we did this for Ayub, to serve as a reminder, للعابدين, to those who worship us. To serve as a reminder to you about the power of Allah, and how Allah can fix everything that is wrong with you or with your life, as long as you keep your faith in Allah and you're true to your words and your proclamation that there is no God except Allah, and that you have faith in Allah and Allah alone, and that you do not, at the first sign of trial or at the first sign of trouble, run around and say things that are not necessary to be said. And you exercise patience. Patience is one of the things that we need to navigate the waters of trials when they come to us. Patience. And this patience is not, you do not grow, you grow into patience. You do not inherit patience. You learn patience. And you learn patience from things before trials occur. You do not learn patience when trial comes to you. If you have not been practicing patience before you face your trial, you will fail your trial, because you will not be patient when the trial finally occurs to you. So every day, and because from today onwards, and we've been doing this before, but from today onwards, we will keep at the back of our minds that there are two events in our lives that are coming to us sooner or later, that we have to be prepared for. And every step we take from today onwards, we will have this at the back of our mind. It will be every day that we live will be a day to be prepared for those two events, such that when those two events finally happen to us or to someone close to us, it will not be sudden, and we will be ready and prepared to tackle them in the best way. And also, may Allah, and we will be ready by the grace of Allah to pass the test and the trial when they come to us. In Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said also that وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. These trials and tribulations will come to you in many different forms. We will try you and test your faith. بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. We will test you with things from fear. We will make you fear things, make you afraid of things. This fear will be a test of your faith. This fear will be a test of your belief in Allah. It will be a test of your steadfastness with your proclamation of your belief in Allah. We will test you maybe by you being threatened by spirits or by things that you do not see or things that you do not understand, just so we know if you will stand steadfast with Allah. There are people whom once they see any sign of trouble, maybe they think or they have a dream, and it appears to them like a spirit or a jinn is bothering them. They forget totally to call on Allah. They forget totally everything they've learned. They forget to even recite anything from the Azkar that seeks Allah's help, and they start seeking other things beside Allah out of fear for what they felt from trouble from a spirit or from anything, out of fear from that, not knowing that that fear that they feel at that point is one of those tests and trials from Allah to test their faith. And just like that, one has just failed one of the tests of Allah. And Allah has warned us and said that we will be testing you with things from fear. وَالْجُوعِ. We will be testing you with things from hunger. We will test you with things from hunger. بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات. We will test you from reductions in your wealth and your belongings. We will test you with reduction in your wealth and your belongings. There are such people whom, for fear of losing their investment or for fear of decrease in their wealth or their risk, they will not tend to give sadaqah, or they will not tend to pay zakah, because they fear that their money will be reduced if they pay zakah, and zakah is money that is owed, and you do not pay it out of your money, and then it will destroy the rest of your wealth. Or sadaqah is something that you give to cleanse your own soul, but out of fear that your wealth will be reduced, you do not give sadaqah. This is also a test from Allah. There are also people who, out of fear that if they do not do a certain transaction, that their wealth will be reduced or that their wealth will not increase, knowing that such transaction is forbidden, is haram, and they still fall into that kind of transaction just to increase their wealth, or out of fear that if they do not perform that transaction, their wealth will be reduced. And indeed, there is a promise from Allah that one who moves away from something that is forbidden, Allah will open ways that are acceptable, that are halal, to replace the one that is forbidden, that is moving away from. However, at the time of trial, this is another form of trial where one fears for the reduction in one's wealth, that pushes one to do something that is forbidden rather than stay true to Allah, seek help from Allah, do what is right, and have faith in Allah, the one that you proclaim to have faith in, and have faith in the face of that test, that if you do the right thing, your wealth will not decrease but increase, and you would rather do the right thing and have your wealth, and put your trust in Allah and believe that Allah will open ways for you in more, acceptable means, halal ways, to increase your wealth, rather than fall into the trap of shaitan to do something that is forbidden to increase or grow your wealth. وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ. We will test you with things from reduction in souls around you. People might die that you love. People that you've attached your love to might be dying around you. This might also be a test from Allah to test your faith, because if you truly believe in Allah and you understand from the words of Allah that death is certain and it will happen. You would have been thinking about death before it occurs to you or to someone close to you. And when it actually occurs, you do not get carried away by the fact that it's happening, and you do not join um, those people who question Allah when Allah shows his might, because death and the way that it occurs is the might of Allah. Death is the one thing that you do not negotiate. Death, no matter, it is the one thing that you do not negotiate in any way. You do not negotiate with death based on the money that you have or the wealth you have. You do not negotiate with death based on the on your closeness with Allah. No matter how close you are to Allah, no matter how much ibadah you have in the sight of Allah, no matter how loving you are to Allah, how much Allah loves you, it will take your soul. Allah will cause you to die, because death is promised to every single person. You will not see death as an adversary. You will see it as something to embrace and something to be prepared for. And you will make preparations and plans for yourself and not be scared or afraid of it. And when it occurs to someone close to you whom you love, you will accept that it comes from Allah, the Lord of the worlds, and you will surrender yourself in totality you will see it as a will of Allah, and you will surrender yourself in totality to it. There is a narration of the story of a woman who had lost a relative, and she was by the graveside grieving and crying out loud. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had approached her, to calm her down and ask her to, be calm rather than, doing tantrums like she was. And she was grieving. She was very distraught. And she screamed at the Prophet to leave her alone and, and to walk away. And the Prophet did. And then people went to meet the woman and asked her, didn't you know who that person is? And she said, who is he? And they told her that is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she was sorry for what she did. She did not recognize the Prophet Muhammad. She didn't realize that she had just, screamed at the Prophet of Allah. So she went and met the Prophet on the way, and she apologized to the Prophet. And the Prophet said to her that as-sabru inda sadmatil ula, that patience is at the first sign of trial, at the first sign of tribulation. You express your level of patience. You're either patient or you're not. And the way you know that you're patient is at the immediate point where something happens to you, at the immediate point of your trial. Suddenly someone dies. What was your immediate reaction to it? If your immediate reaction to it was to be patient, and you remember to say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, which is a statement of Islam, which is a statement of submission to the will of Allah, of acceptance of the will of Allah and submission to it, then that you have shown patience at the first instance of the occurrence of your trial. But if your first reaction to what has happened is to cry and make some calls and blame Allah and ask, oh Allah, why? Oh Allah, where art thou? Or oh death, where is thy sting? And these are all the comments that you make the first time something happens. Immediately something happens, then you have not expressed faith. You have not expressed patience in the Sadmatul Ula, like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ enjoined us. So again, the first thing that we have to make preparations for, in readiness for trials and tribulations, which is one of the sure things in the life of every human. Like we said at the beginning, there are two things that are constant and they're sure to happen to every person in their life. And one of them is the trial and tribulations from Allah, and the second one is death. And how do we prepare for these two occurrences in Allah? These are great events in our lives besides being born on earth. Another thing that is sure is being born, and that event has passed for everyone. But the two events that are left that are sure for everyone is the trial of Allah. Everyone that proclaims faith will be tried, and death. Everyone will die. And we said that preparing for trials, the first thing is patience. We have to learn, and patience is something that you learn. Patience doesn't just come to you. You don't just become a patient person. So you have to practice patience. Patience every day, every waking moment, every time you will practice patience. You will practice patience with people around you. You will practice to be patient with how you speak with people and how you relate with people. You will practice to be patient in your salah every day. You do not, that's part of being patient. You do not rush your salah when you're praying alone or when you're praying behind any imam. You will do everything correctly. If you're patient on your salah, you're on the way to being patient when you face a trial. Um, so you will practice patience in everything that you do. That is one of the ways to prepare for trials that is sure to occur in everyone's life. The second thing that we have to prepare, make provisions for in preparation for this occurrence, which is trials in our lives, is to practice prayer. Learn first. Let's seek knowledge about these trials. Seek knowledge about those who have been tried before us, like Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has said in the Quran um, about Ayub. Was zikr lil abidin. We made his trial. We made his trial and also his healing. A source of reminder to the people, to the believers, to the worshippers. If Allah made his trial and his healing a source of reminder to the believers and the worshippers, every other test, every other person that Allah has tested, and there are multiple narrations that we have in the Quran. Let us research this. Let us take the Quran and read it and learn from the stories of those before us. This is another way to prepare for our own trial. We will learn from someone else's trial and how they overcame it. And Allah Himself, and who is the best one to narrate such trials and how the people went about it than Allah Himself. So we can review these stories in the Quran about the people before us who have been tried and how they went around, how they went about it, and how they passed their trial. That's another way to prepare for our own trial. And another way is also to learn to pray to Allah and put our trust in Him, even when there is no trial. When everything seems to go smoothly for us, let us always remember to thank Allah and pray to Allah. Let us not have this sense of entitlement where we feel that everything that's going right in our lives is based on some knowledge that we have, or based on some preparation that we've made beforehand, or based on some education that we have, or some power, or some some wisdom that we own, that it's making all of these things happen to us, to go smoothly for us. Let us begin to cultivate the mindset that everything that comes to us indeed is from Allah, good or bad, especially when they are good. At the point when they are good, that's the point where we tend to forget about the mercies of Allah. We tend to forget that this is a mercy from Allah. Let us be like Sulaiman alayhi salam, who remembered that everything he had were mercies, were a source of blessing and mercy from Allah. And he thanked Allah for it. He thanked Allah for it. Let us do the same thing. Everything that goes on well for you, think about them and do not relate them to some preparation you've made or some education that you have, but relate them to the mercy of Allah and be thankful for them. And also remember to pray for every little thing that you own. This will prepare you for your trial when things don't go smoothly. When you're being tried, you will still be that same person who always remembers to thank Allah, who always focus on the positives rather than the negatives in their lives. Because if negative things are happening to us and all we focus on are those negative things, we forget about the positive things. For example, someone who did not have to eat, and all he can think of is the fact that he has done everything right, and yet he doesn't have food to eat. He has forgotten to thank Allah that he has eyes to see. He has forgotten to thank Allah that he has health to even remember to be hungry. He will forget to thank Allah for the other mercies that Allah has bestowed on him, not knowing that there are people who have something to eat but do not have the mouth or the appetite to eat those things. So he will only focus on the fact that he doesn't have anything to eat rather than focus on the other little mercies that he has gotten from Allah and thank Allah for those. So let us learn gratitude, to appreciate Allah and focus on what's positive, and always, again, remember to cultivate the culture and mindset of appreciating and relating everything back to Allah rather than thinking it is from ourselves. Now, the second thing that is most probable, well, not probable, most certain to occur in a person's life is death. كل نفس ذائقة الموت. Every soul will taste death. Every single person, no matter how special you are, you will die. The question is, when will it happen? And when it happens, will you be prepared for it? It's coming. I mean, you cannot curse someone with death. It's just not possible. You cannot kill somebody unless it is their time to die. And everyone has a time. There's an expiry date that came with every one of us. When it's going to be, we do not know. A young person can die the same as an old person can die. There's no year attached to death for anyone, but there's an expiry date. It is not guaranteed that one will grow old. Growing old is something that we've attached importance to by ourselves. It is not mentioned by Allah that growing old is the criteria for dying. Death is death, and death will come to everyone. Again, the question is, when will it come? And will we be ready when it comes? How do we get ready for death? How do we prepare ourselves for death? First is to know for certain that it's going to happen. And yeah, everyone is going to say, yeah, we know it's going to happen. But if we ask ourselves, are we prepared? Are we truly, really prepared? When you ask most people, do you have your will prepared? They will say no. Most people know that they should have their will prepared, but we procrastinate on preparing our wills, maybe hoping that, we'll have another year, where indeed no one is guaranteed to live another day. So we should put all of these things in place. You should have all of this in place every day and make account for your life and your living every single day, expecting your own death. Every day you should live your life every day like it's going to be your last. You should be kind to people, like that's the only opportunity you will have to be kind. You should speak good words to people, like that's the only words you will speak. You should relate with people, like that's the last time you will relate with them. Every day that you breathe, you should see it as an opportunity you should see it as a privilege and an opportunity rather than seeing it as taking it for granted or seeing it as an entitlement. No one is entitled to live. It is a privilege from Allah that we should always be thankful for, and death is something that we should always expect and be prepared for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for each and every one of us at the point of our death, and count us amongst the believers, and grant us your mercies and your forgiveness before you take our souls, and count us amongst those who will enter your paradise. Ameen. Now, to go to the next part of our discussion today, this is just I'm just going to be answering some questions that I've received most recently about relationship and finances in marriage. For the most part, we've had a long series of discussion regarding the family unit, the rights of the woman and the rights of the man, of the husband, and how the man and the woman should live and respect one another, and what the rights are in the Quran. And we had a comprehensive tafsir of the verse in Surah An-Nisa, Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna 'ala Nisa, and what it means. And at that lecture, we had to explain to ourselves that it does not mean Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna 'ala Nisa. It does not necessarily mean that men are better than women, but that it places a lot of burden on the man, on the male or the husband, who is responsible for any female or a wife. And Ar-Rijal in that context does not apply only to a husband. It applies to all men who are responsible for women. And we went further to explain that a husband is responsible for the wife, but a father is responsible for a daughter. So a rijal, in the context of a father and daughter relationship, a rijal would apply to the fathers, and an nisa'u would apply to the daughters. In the context of a marriage or a family, a husband and a wife, a rijal would apply to the husbands, and an nisa'u will be the wives, and so on and so forth. So we've had questions about, and as part of that, we've also explained that from that verse also enjoins that the male, again, in the context of a husband, and for the purpose of this discussion, we will focus on the husband and the wife as we talk about the family finances from an Islamic perspective. Um, we've made it clear that the finances of the household, without any doubt, the burden, again, as part of the burden of being qawwamuna ala nisa, the burden, the financial burden of the family is placed entirely on the man, on the husband, um, and so much so that even if the wife is earning, you know, she does not have any response. She does not have any responsibility to the family unit. She cannot be forced to take up responsibilities in the family unit because, again, the responsibility is on the husband. And the proof for this is also in that الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. And that is for the man, the responsible to spend, the responsibility to spend on the family is solely on the man in the sight of Sharia. Now, what is the man responsible for in the family, and what is the woman responsible for? For the most part, we do not have any clear template for families where husbands and wives are working. What we have template for, and that works everywhere, is where the man is working and the wife is, tending to the household, on a full-time basis. And this is where everything is unambiguous and it's clear that because the wife is not earning any income, the husband immediately clearly knows that the responsibility for the wife is upon him and for the whole household. I mean, she doesn't have any income anyway, so there's no way you can hassle her to contribute or do anything. However, things start becoming ambiguous, and we start having issues and a lot of questions in situations where the husband is working and the wife is working. And in fact, we've had a lot of issues around this where some people will complain that, well, she is working. Why should I be the one bearing all the responsibilities for the household? What is she using? What is she going to be using her money for? So some men even go as far as saying that because their wife is working, if they continue to take the responsibility of the household, then she's going to be richer, and they will just keep going poor because they're spending their own income on the family while she's spending her own income on whatever she likes. We've had cases also where, a man will complain that the wife is building, a big house in Nigeria from her own earnings, when indeed he's been saddled with the responsibility of paying bills in America. So he's paying all the bills here, and the wife is just taking her own earnings and taking it, to Nigeria or to some country somewhere and buying properties or building or buying lands or creating wealth for herself. And he is scared of growing poorer while his wife grows richer. One thing that is clear is that the rules are clear. However, there's also the rules of practicality that we have to be cognizant of. We cannot be hell-bent on the rules that we lose the practicality of the rules itself. So what I mean by that is that when we say that the man is responsible for the household, that the man is 100%, finite, there's no contest on that. It does not mean entirely that the woman cannot contribute to the success or the growth of the household. The only thing that should not happen is the woman being compelled to take up responsibilities which are not assigned to her. In my previous lecture about the family unit, I had mentioned specifically that the family unit is the sole prerogative of the man, that the man is the one that has the prerogative of bringing a family together. The man is the one that says he's ready to get married. So the institution of marriage is built around the man. If anyone wants to contest that, please. However, again, the institution of marriage is built around the man. The man is the one that proposes in the sight of the Sharia. It's the one that forms the family. It's the one that picks the wife to join him in the family and build that family up. This is one of, what places the burden of the responsibility on the man. Now, accept that the man has a responsibility, but doesn't mean that the woman cannot help the man. If it's going to be causing suspicion, and it does in reality, as we talk about practicality of the rules, as long as the woman is working, it is acceptable that the woman also, it is not required, it is not mandated, it is not necessary, but it is acceptable and also a way for the family unit to grow in love and respect and also in trust. Because to live together, you have to be able to trust yourselves. Because again, remember, everything will be smooth if the woman was not working, and it's only the man that's working. Then the man, I mean, we've seen these cases too, where it is the man working and not the woman working, and the man is taking care of everything as he is supposed to. There's no suspicion anywhere, and everything goes smoothly. But we start having issues and questions where both people are working, and it appears that only the man is taking up the responsibility and the woman is just holding her own income and not contributing anything. Again, while she should not be forced or mandated or, compelled to contribute to the financial responsibilities of the family, it is common sense as a way of keeping the family together, again, and maintaining the respect and trust that the woman contribute whatever she feels is appropriate. Again, remember, she cannot be forced to do this. And if she does not, it does not mean that that's a ground for divorce or anything. It should not be causing any troubles. It should not be causing any rifts between the husband and the wife. Because again, this is the sole prerogative of the woman. It is her money, and her money is hers to keep. And then that also brings up more questions. And the questions would be, does a man have any right to forbid the woman from working? Does the man have the right? Again, remember, the man owns the family, but does he have the right? That will take us further deep inside. There's a difference between being authoritarian and being a builder and being a leader, right? One who's a leader, the poet, an Arabic poet, that said that ليس الغبي بسيد في قومه لكن سيد قومه المتغابي. He said that ليس الغبي, a stupid person, ليس الغبي بسيد في قومه. A stupid person cannot be made leader of his people. You cannot be stupid or lack wit and be made a leader of your people. لكن سيد قومه المتغابي. But the person who is the leader of his people must pretend to be stupid sometimes for things to move forward. If you're a leader, it doesn't mean you always have to show strength. A leader does not always have to express, power and authority everywhere. Sometimes you just, calm down yourself, or sometimes just nod, or sometimes just say, okay, just for things to go smoothly for the people you lead. But if you're a leader that every day you have to exert your authority, every day you have to exert your power, you will be breaking more than you're fixing. So that is one of the traits of leadership. So as a man and a leader of a family, not every day you're going to be exerting your power. So even if you have such powers to forbid your wife from working, I mean, how does that help your family to move forward? Sometimes you don't have to express such powers. You don't need to express except if in certain circumstances you feel or you know for sure based on some evidence that if your wife works, some things are going to happen that could break the marriage. That could be cause for you to reject your wife from working, for example. Um, and in terms of uh, finances, there are questions about there are questions that some people say that the wife should bring all of her earnings and give it to the husband, and then the husband should give her from that. Some people claim that that is the way. Some people would say that the wife owns what she owns, that she has a right to possession as part of the rights of the women that we've, according in the sight of Sharia that we counted to ourselves back then. The woman has a right to her own possession. So her money, earnings are part of her possessions that should not be taken away from her. So she does not need to present it to the, so she collects a paycheck. She does not need to. And nowadays paychecks are even usually maybe even direct deposit or you get a check that you have to pay into a bank account. So you don't have to transfer that to the husband. What needs to be done, and this is mutual because وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. So it is for them is as much as is over them. So they have as much rights on their husband as the husband have over them. So if a wife should declare her earnings to the husband the same way should declare his earnings to the wife. There's a mutual respect. Knowing that one is not better than the other, one is not greater than the other. The husband, however, is responsible for the wife. Is responsible to take the burden for her. Is responsible for protecting her dignity and her person. He has the burden of making sure that she's happy. He has the burden of making sure, even in fact, giving her financial education is your responsibility. Not impoverishing her, that's not your job. You don't have to impoverish your wife because she is your woman or you have power over her. That's not your job. Your job is to give her financial education. Guess what? One of the wisdom behind financially empowering our women, our wives especially, is that, say for example, and as a man that is building a family, you die. You have all the vision and all the objectives that you've planned for your family, and in the middle of it all, you die. And you have not financially empowered your family. You have not financially, in fact, you have ruined your wife just so you can feel good. What then happens to your family after you? You have failed because part of your responsibility is to uphold their dignity when you're there and when you're not there. Because you're responsible for them even after you die until she marries someone else. You're still responsible for her. So if you haven't made provisions for her before you die, and especially if you've actively, kept her down, then you failed. You failed in your mission as a person. You failed the test of al-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. So all these things we have to be cognizant of. All these things we have to be conscious of. Again, your job is to protect your wife's right, not to keep her down. Your job is to give her dignity and protect her dignity, not to mess her up or take away her dignity in the sight of people. So again, just going back to that, say finances, shared finances, or declaring one's finances is not one way. The wife should declare her finances to the husband, and this is not because it is mandatory. This is so we can move along. Again, this is so that we can have mutual respect in the relationship. This is so we can have trust in the relationship. This is so that we can plan the family together. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest of mankind, the greatest leader, the one whom without him, the religion of Islam as it is would not be the way it is. And this is by design by Allah, that Allah has made all the rules and everything that constitutes Islam today to come through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet presided over wars and presided over men who believed in his message and people who did not believe in his message. He presided over all of them with mercy and kindness, and it was fair, it was just with everyone. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah said to him sometime in the Quran, لَوْ كُنْتَ فَزًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. That if you are strong-hearted, لو كنت فظا, if you are, always aggressive, if you add aggression towards people, or you are always stone-hearted towards people, if you don't show empathy to people, and empathy is learning to walk in other people's shoes. Think of yourself as your wife, for example, and how you treat your wife. Think if someone was treating you that way. Think of your wife as your sister, and think if your sister's husband was treating your wife the way you're treating her, would you be happy? Think of your wives as your mothers, and think if your father had treated your mother this way, would you be happy in your sight? If you witnessed your father treating your mother this way, would you be happy? This is showing empathy. It's trying to walk in other people's shoes. Show sympathy to people you have power over. You do not have to show all of your strength. And this is what Allah was saying to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were like this, that you do not show empathy to people, and you were strong-hearted towards them, they would move away from you. They will neglect you. They will fail to listen to you. They will not respect you. They might fear you, but they will not respect you. This is what we should seek with our families, the people that Allah has given us power and control over. It is not to be the one that they fear, but the one that they respect. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, the one that's most important that I wanted to point out, and everything is important, but what I wanted to point out is the fact that Allah said to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Shawirhum fil amri." Seek their advice in all matters. Seek the advice of the people you lead in all matters. You are the leader, truly, but seek their advice. We were talking with someone yesterday, and they were saying, why would the Prophet, be seeking counsel? He considered a war council, and it was, speaking with people about strategies of war. Like, this is what Allah has commanded him to do. He knows everything. Allah would guide him. Allah would send angels to help him and provide guidance to him. But yet Allah has asked him to seek the counsel of the people, not because he needs their advice to move forward, or that he needs the strategies that they will provide to him to win the war, but it needs to carry them along. They need to feel valued. The same way with our families. You are the leader of the family. Be like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Seek their counsel. You do not just rule over your family like a ruler, like a dictator. You have to make your family feel valued. You want to make a decision that affects your family, you have to seek their advice. You have to call a meeting with your wife. Don't just see your wife as an inferior part of you. Treat her as an equal. So you seek her advice, talk to her about what affects the family. The same thing with the wives. You want to make a move, maybe you have money and you want to, buy something for the house. You don't just go there, even though it's your money, and spend it on the family. You need to speak with your husband about it. Yes, it is your money. Yes, you don't have to give it to him, but you want to do something from your heart of hearts. You want to do it. You still need to talk to him about it. You need to get him to agree to it. You can't just, because you have the money, and just make a change in the house. You just buy a new TV and install it in his house. You don't do that. So we have to learn to get along. We have to learn to keep the peace amongst ourselves. We have to think about the greater good. How does our actions affect our family unit? Whether you're the man or the woman, your actions, how does it affect your family unit? Your finances, the work that you do, how does it affect your responsibilities to the family? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide and protect us. May Allah continue to keep us steadfast on this religion. Give us the knowledge and the understanding to continue to grow deeper in this thing. Allah has made us Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may He not make us overstep or derail from the path of Al-Islam, ourselves, our children, our families, and our generations to come. May we all be strong Muslims that will worship Allah with knowledge and worship Him the right way that He deserves to be worshipped. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us goodness in this life and in the hereafter. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullah khairan for the beautiful lecture and also beautiful admonition. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you abundantly. So let us recite Surah to Kawthar for our Ustad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna a'tainaka li-Kawthar. Fasalli li-Rabbika wanhar. Inna shanihaka huwa al-abtar. So moving on to the next segment. If we have any question and answer or comment, the floor is open. Bismillah. Wọ́n ní tí a bá ní ẹni ìbéèrè. Do you have any question, comment? Okay, so if there's no further questions or comments, we'll move on to the next item, which is a dua. So I ask Ustaz AbdulAzeez Alugo to give us a dua. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله